I don't think I believed at some point that this would be a short war. We perfectly understand that this aggression is not about Kharkiv or Zaporizhia or Mariupol. This is about changing the security system in Europe. The more we would help you, the safer would be our houses.
Hello world, it's KIEV Not Kiev on the line, presented by Tatiana Haiduk and Polina Ivanishyn.
Today we're both excited to be guests at the Embassy of Friendly Poland to Ukraine and talk to His Excellency Mr. Ambassador Bartosz Cichocki. Mr. Ambassador, thank you for having us.
Pleasure that you are having me. Welcome to the Embassy.
I know that after February 24, you stayed in Kyiv all the time. I mean, that you haven't left Kyiv for a couple of months, like most of the embassies and ambassadors did. So what knowledge about the Ukrainians and about yourself did you get being present in Ukrainian capital in the first days of Russian full-scale invasion?
Well, first thing I would say, I learned those days how cruel and disrespectful toward international law, human rights are the Russians. Second, I confirmed my conviction that the Ukrainians love their country, courageously and skillfully fight, that family, relatives are the most important values to the Ukrainians, and that they will defend their land and their families to the last day of fights.
What feelings did you have during the first days of the full-scale invasion when you were staying here, you personally?
We were very busy with communicating with our headquarters and with Ukrainian government. We were busy with delivering and managing the supplies coming from or through Poland. So these were not days to focus on feelings, but on job we had to do.
What were the priority tasks that the Polish Foreign Ministry set before you at that time?
First, it was the first task was to inform on an hourly development of the situation. The other task was to assist and to help connect ministries, institutions. You remember this massive outflow of the refugees. The government of Poland immediately changed the rules for passing the border, the state border. Soon those contacts became direct, ministry to ministry or border guards to border guards. But the first days we assisted, we helped. Of course, not less important thing was to think of the security of my personnel, of follow procedures related to documents, archives, to secure food, water, petrol, in case shops are shut down, which was the case.
It's been almost a year after the start of the full-scale invasion. Don't you think that the war has taken too much of our time, or you didn't have the illusions that it would end very quickly at the very start, did you?
I don't think I believed at some point that this would be a short war. First, different to many other capitals in Poland, we rejected this suspicion that Ukraine would fall within 2 or 3 or days or a week. But then we had no illusions that after pushing out Russians from the Kyiv Oblast, this would stop like this. We were rather confident that the Russians would focus Donbass and south. So I guess I didn't have those expectations that war would be fast and soon end.
Ukraine's victory is very important to the entire democratic world. However, for Poland, it is crucial. I believe it's vital. There is an opinion that Russia will not stop at Ukraine, would not stop at Ukraine. Do you share this opinion?
This is widely shared view in Poland, in Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia. We perfectly understand that this Russian aggression is not about Kharkiv or Zaporizhia or Mariupol. This is about changing the security system in Europe created after the fall of the Soviet Union. To make long story short, Russia attempts to move the clock backwards 40 or so years. So of course Poland would fall, a victim would feel the consequences strongly if Russia succeeds. So one thing is solidarity and moral reaction of Poles, of the government and the society toward the victim of Russian aggression, Ukraine. But second thing is a very practical understanding that you are defending also us, that the more we would help you, the safer would be our houses.
To attack Ukraine, Russia chose the denazification as a fictional scenario to attack our country. What do you think Russia would choose potentially as a scenario to go further, to attack countries that have borders with Ukraine, including Poland?
It doesn't matter. I mean, they will find a reason if Ukraine, with support of international community, would not stop them. So let's we have to focus on not on their narratives, but on their tanks, artillery and troops.
You know, the purpose of this conversation, among other things, is countering Russian disinformation. The previous question served more to illustrate the absurdity of the pretexts that Russia is using to cover up its aggression. By the way, what are the most absurd things about Ukraine that you've heard from Russian propaganda?
Yeah, this Nazi thing is one of my favorite absurdities, taking to regard, among other things, that Russia is using those private military companies that are, most of them are neo-Nazis. The leaders or the commanders of those units are known for glorifying Adolf Hitler and those Nazi concepts. There's plenty, actually. Every press conference of spokesperson of the Russian MFA, every press conference of spokesperson of President of Russia gives us new collection of fake news and absurd accusations. The problem is that the Russian society lives within this bubble of fake reality, alternative reality for a second decade, and this has a consequence that whatever happens on the battlefield, whatever happens in the Kremlin, our relationship with the Russian society, who will be there anyway, we will not change the geography, this relationship would be challenged, would be very difficult because they don't have pluralism, they don't have freedom of speech, they don't have alternative sources of information. They believe, most of them believe one or another explanation why Russia behaves aggressively towards her neighbors.
Continuing the topic of the bubble in which the Russian society lives, you have an impressive diplomatic career. The geography of your diplomatic missions includes Moscow, where you worked in 2015-2016, already after Russia started the war against Ukraine, and your duties included the work with media relations in Russia. So what conclusions did you make back then about how the mass media in Russia work?
Before I joined the MFA of Poland, I was a think tanker, and I would regularly travel in the early 2000s to Russia. I would meet their think tankers, their journalists, and the tragic thing is that observing relationships I had, the Russian media I followed throughout those 20 plus years, I noticed how the situation is deteriorating. I remember in the early 2000s we could normally speak to each other. We would disagree on many things, including energy security, including what they call close neighborhood, or the role of the US in security system, but they were legitimate debates. Those things were also debated among the NATO allies. And then I watched how most of them, or all of them, were becoming more and more isolated and confrontational and closed for this exchange of thoughts, which is a major value of the democratic world. When I served as spokesperson for our embassy in Moscow, it was already difficult to present alternative opinion. Back then, for example, we had this argument about Katyn massacre or how the Second World War began with the Soviet-German alliance, or what actually victory in the Second World War meant for countries and nations like ours. And when we tried to convince the press in Moscow that they could also include our point of view, it was more and more difficult.
We have several questions from our friends and colleagues from the European Pravda. Their time has come. For a long time, relations between Poland and Ukraine were formed around the past. Our common history was their basis, generating both positivity and negativity in relations. Has that changed? Can we now say that relations between Poland and Ukraine are starting to form around the future?
Well, first, I wouldn't say that our relations were somehow focused around the past several years ago. The thing is that diplomats and officials are paid to fix what is not fixed, to recover if something is going wrong. Between us, the trade, culture relationship was more or less okay, so there was no need for officials, for public servants, for diplomats to intervene. While in those administrative decisions related to the past, there were things we would disagree. So that's how public opinion somehow could get an image that we are talking only about the past. Today, what the major thing that changed is mutual confidence, which was, I think, there was deficit of it 2 years ago or 3 years ago. Today, I believe that the government of Ukraine has more confidence in us we have more confidence in what are the real motives, intentions of our Ukrainian partners and neighbors, and this helps a lot to solve issues from very symbolic and very symbolic decisions like those lions in the cemetery, Lychakiv cemetery in Lviv, that were covered for many years for not entirely clear reasons to me, to the most important thing, the possibility for the relatives of those who were killed or died in Ukraine for different reasons in the Polish Bolshevik War in 1939 or during those massacres in Volhynia 1943-44, and one of the NGOs submitted last year this request to be granted with possibility to look for and find the remains, human remains, and the decision was positive. So we understand that this ban on exhumations is no longer there, and this is a huge step forward. I also very much believe that today, when Ukrainian NGOs or state institutions would request us for a place, for a monument or otherwise, or other things related to identity, to history, we would also have confidence about your intentions, and those things would go smoother.
One more question from the European Pravda. Poland was once called the advocate of European integration of Ukraine. Although not everyone agreed with this formula, now Ukraine is revitalizing the movement to the EU and NATO. What is the role of Poland in all these processes?
We are supportive. We very much encourage our partners and allies to be open-minded toward integration, Euro-Atlantic or European integration of Ukraine, not only because we believe that there is no more place for gray zones. If we would not integrate, then Russia would never give up her hopes or illusions to this way or the other dominate. And this would again create threats for the rest of Europe. We believe that there are important processes within Europe globally that demand us to look forward and to acknowledge that the young, innovative, creative society of Ukraine would simply make us stronger. We also believe from our own experience that this difficult, painful, annoying process of adjusting to the EU or NATO standards helps to reform your institutions, your market rules, and to build more resilient country, more citizen-friendly country. So that's why we support your accession to the European Union and NATO. But you should not be naive. We are equally supportive of the enlargement of the EU and NATO, and we are equally critically respecting the quality of membership. We would be the country, because we are neighbors, because we have we are trading together. Our investors are here or will be here, and we would closely watch quality of your integration. So we are not kind of limitlessly advocating the enlargement, but we believe this would help you to build better better institutions, improve state-society relationship, and create equal framework for competition for companies, for market players.
As for the NATO, in Davos, President Duda said that together with Lithuania, Poland will insist on NATO guarantees for Ukraine. Is there already an understanding of the mechanism by which this can be achieved?
Definitely, July and the summit of NATO summit in Vilnius would be important moment, deadline for us to move forward from Bucharest summit 2008, where we said that Ukraine and Georgia will become members. Today the situation is totally different. Today Ukraine is a victim to Russian aggression, and you are fighting. So definitely, when we talk about guarantees, the first thing that comes to my mind are the supplies of arms, petrol, construction materials, energy, infrastructure materials, equipment, humanitarian aid, etc., etc. Not all of those supplies lie in NATO competence. Of course, arms. This is the first thing. Macro-financial support is also important, but NATO is not the right address. Although most of the countries that are members of NATO are members of the EU, World Bank, IMF, etc., etc. Those talks, those issues like security guarantee, they need certain discretion. Of course, I'm not going to publicly dig into details, but definitely there is a group of countries in NATO that are supportive of making another step forward from Bucharest toward the membership, and now we need to convince other allies that this is the right thing to do. Sending a company of Leopards has no real meaning.
Can we say that Poland even benefited from this situation?
The taxes that come from Ukrainians working in Poland already overcome the expenses to manage this influx of the refugees. The brutal reality is that this war is not the only crisis the world is facing.